Let's talk about the keynotes. Scott Davis and Lizzie O'Shea, and Scott's up first. Now, because you've all got Google and I've gone on long enough, there's no real need in 2021 for me to go into the intricate histories of these two. Chances are, they alone may be the reason you signed up for XConf. Now, in ancient times, we would have hailed these two as warriors, as protectors of rights, as wading into battles that, let's be honest, most of us would need to find about 10 times the courage we have today to even Google how to get involved in some of those complex issues, let alone go to the front lines and put ourselves on the line. You can read their books, you can read their articles, their interviews, check out their videos, and hear them as amazing podcast guests across the web. There's probably even TikToks of both of them. I suspect they're thoroughly modern global citizens. Now, having them with us today live at XConf is a special thrill, because in an era where you can access virtual Scott and Lizzie in your time-shifted leisure, it's a thrill to have them setting up our X conference in real time, talking about what they're really passionate about and joining a lot of dots around our theme today, hearing how they personally navigate this treacherous moral landscape we call the 21st century, that you are all a part of as technologists. Because they possess a magic that doesn't come across easily in PowerPoint or on a Spotify podcast or on YouTube. And that magic comes from being people who do, being in the arena, as Brené Brown's book opened with. So because for sure the future gets more volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous, we live in VUCA land today, and our leaders need support. Let's follow along. Let's welcome Scott and Lizzie. And Scott Davis, I hereby hand you the X Conference burning torch to light the giant flame and get us underway. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nigel. I'm going to be serving your role in XConf United States in just a few months, so I'll be taking good notes with you as well. As Nigel said, my name is Scott Davis. But let me take this opportunity to introduce my colleague and co-presenter, Siri. Hey, Siri, how are you?
Hi there. I'm pretty good. Thanks.
Perhaps you have a coworker named Siri as well. Perhaps you just heard from her. Perhaps this would be a good time for you to put your voice assistant to sleep, especially if they happen to be named Siri, Alexa, Cortana, or even Google. Because if I did just trigger your smartphone or your tablet or your smart speaker or your smart TV or maybe even your laptop, I can assure you that it wasn't the work of a criminal mastermind or an elite hacker. I was simply using the technology as it was designed and as it was intended to be used. Open photos. You see, we are well over 35 years into the IoT era, the Internet of Things era. You might have heard that the S in IoT stands for security. Well, now you've experienced it as well. We're here to talk about digital trust, but I'd like to introduce another idea that walks hand in hand with trust: consent. You see, everything that we do on the internet happens on the spectrum between full openness and complete privacy. That pendulum that swings between the two extremes of openness and privacy is what we call consent. Hey, Siri, what is consent?
Consent occurs when one person voluntarily agrees to the proposal or desires of another. Shall I continue?
No.
Okay.
You might feel that me, a stranger, speaking to your personal smartphone just a moment ago was a violation of trust, but only because it was without your consent. It landed on an uncomfortable part of that spectrum between openness and privacy, permissions and trust. Similarly, You might feel that what companies are doing with your personal information right now, without your consent, is a violation of trust as well. You see, storing your personal data online in the cloud is an act of trust if it lives on a server that you don't own, can't see, can't touch, and can't delete your information from if you want it removed. Perhaps it's an act of unearned trust, perhaps an unequal, unbalanced, or unreciprocated act of trust, but it's an act of trust nonetheless. Your personal photos and your videos, your emails and your private text messages, the books that you buy and the newspapers that you read, the music and podcasts you listen to while you're alone wearing headphones, the movies and TV shows that you watch at home behind locked doors with your family and your friends. All of those things are things that you're entrusting someone, some company, some service to take care of on your behalf. Now, normally in real life, when you form a new service agreement with a doctor or a lawyer or a banker, trust is one of the first things you discuss. A banker or financial planner is bound by trust in what's called a fiduciary responsibility. Hey, Siri, what's a fiduciary relationship?
A fiduciary is a person who holds a legal or ethical relationship of trust with one or more other parties. Should I keep going?
No.
Okay.
A lawyer legally can't share their private conversations you've had with them. That's called attorney-client privilege. And a doctor is typically bound by an oath of honor that is thousands of years old, the Hippocratic Oath. Search the web for Hippocrates. Ah, there we go. Scroll down. Search the web for Hippocrates. That's a little bit better. Scroll down. Show numbers. Tap 10. There we are. Good old Wikipedia. Hippocrates was a doctor in ancient Greece over 2,000 years ago. Scroll down. Good-looking fellow, isn't he? Scroll down. Scroll down. Tap Hippocratic Oath. Tap Hippocratic Oath. There must be a delay in the Denver to Australia connection that only makes it look like this isn't responding in a timely manner. Here we are at the Hippocratic Oath. As you can see, the Hippocratic Oath is about medical ethics, medical confidentiality, and non-malevolence. That's the first do no evil part of the oath that most people are familiar with. Open photos. So my question to you is this. Do you trust the devices in your life as much as you trust your doctor or your lawyer? Not to put the final wrinkle in your tinfoil hat, but every word that you say in the presence of a smart device, your phone, your watch, your earphones, your tablet, your computer, your TV, your smart speakers, your smart refrigerator, the thermostat on your wall, your robot vacuum cleaner, every smart device that you own that is voice controlled is listening to every word that you say and is analyzing it. Now, in theory, when this device hears its wake word, Siri, Alexa, Cortana, Google, Watson, Bixby, Viv, or M, only when it hears its own name does it wake up and record what you say next and then ship it off to the cloud for processing. That's a lot of trust to place in a lot of different companies, isn't it? Because every one of those companies has published reports detailing the false positives they receive, the accidental recordings of people having sex and of people fighting with their partners, of children playing in the same room as a smart device, of children playing in the room as a smart device when a TV commercial or a radio ad plays in the background and triggers the wake word. Because, you see, a couple of years ago, Google pulled over 200 Android apps from the Google Play Store that were listening without your consent to sounds being played by commercials. Sounds that were in the ultrasonic range, beyond human hearing, yet can be heard by all of your smart devices. Things that were said out loud that you can't hear in your own home to all of your other smart devices within listening range. Does that feel like consent? Does that feel like digital trust? The very first web page was published in 1989 by Tim Berners-Lee, Sir Tim Berners-Lee these days. What's amazing is we can visit that original web page today in any modern web browser. Search the web for the very first web page. Scroll down. There we go. Show numbers. Show numbers. Tap 16. There it is in all of its non-CSS, non-JavaScript glory. Scroll down. Tap first website. And here we are. This is the web's Big Bang moment, the start of it all. And we're looking at it in a web browser that didn't exist at the time, on a smartphone that hadn't been invented yet. Zoom in. Swipe down. Swipe down. Swipe right. You see, the first paragraph says it all. The World Wide Web is a wide area hypermedia information retrieval initiative aiming to give universal access to a large universe of documents. Open photos. You see, all of those mentions of the universe, universal access to a large universe of documents, they are not accidental. You see, a few years later, Tim Berners-Lee said, the power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect. This echoes an idea in traditional brick and mortar architecture called universal design. Hey Siri, what is universal design?
Universal design is the design of buildings, products, or environments to make them accessible to all people, regardless of age, disability, or other factors. Want to hear more?
No.
Okay.
So the architecture of access to this large universe of documents, of information and ideas from around the world, shown to you in the browser of your choice, on the device of your choice, this architecture of access has been baked into the World Wide Web since the very beginning and is fundamental to its success. But the leap from access to participation is a big one, and one that we are still trying to sort through even today. In 2005, about 15 years after the introduction of the web, another Tim O'Reilly, the founder of O'Reilly Publishing, popularized the notion of Web 2.0. And while that's the phrase everyone remembers, Tim described one of the key aspects of this next emerging version of the web as the architecture of participation. Search the web for Web 2.0. Scroll down. Show numbers. Tap 7. There it is. Web 2.0 refers to websites that emphasize user-generated content, ease of use, and participatory culture. Open photos. The reason that that phrase is so striking, the architecture of participation, is because participation isn't baked into the web like access is. It isn't fundamental. You need to build participation into your website intentionally. So instead of a Web 1.0 site like an online encyclopedia where you could read articles, Web 2.0 gave us a site like, well, Wikipedia, where you could write the articles as well. Instead of websites that only allow you to view and download photos, the year 2005 saw the introduction of Flickr, a website that both allowed and encouraged you to upload your own photos and share them with the rest of the world. Heck, YouTube was introduced in 2005. And another popular website at the time was called Hot or Not. The premise was simple, actually. You uploaded a picture of yourself and the rest of the world voted on whether you were, well, hot or not. It's not perhaps the most noble of websites, nothing that raises up humanity or advances lofty ideals, but it was participatory and emblematic of this next wave of Web 2.0 websites. Around the same time, a college sophomore at Harvard took this hot or not idea and also took as many of the female undergraduates' ID photos that he could scrape from the university's online directories. And he published a website of his own called FaceMash. That Harvard college student was Mark Zuckerberg, and FaceMash went on to become Facebook. FaceMash was up for 2 days before Zuckerberg was forced to take it down. He was brought before the administrative board and threatened with expulsion for breaching security, violating copyrights, and violating individual privacy. You see, Zuckerberg wasn't a criminal mastermind or an elite hacker either. He, too, was simply using the web as it was designed. Every website that you visit, every online image that you view is downloaded to your local machine automatically. That is quite simply just the way the web works. So while the mechanics of Hot or Not and FaceMash were similar, uploading photos and gathering votes, there was one crucial difference that Zuckerberg missed. That difference was trust and consent. With Hot or Not, you participated with consent. You uploaded your own photo and it could be deleted at any time, especially by you. With FaceMash, you didn't upload your own photo, and Zuckerberg certainly didn't seek consent from the women before he published their photos, 2 at a time, asking strangers to vote on who is more attractive. By the end of the first day, over 22,000 votes were submitted. Now, in Tim Berners-Lee's book, Weaving the Web, he talks about privacy and consent specifically. One moment. May all of the bookshelves, backdrops in your video calls be real. Now, here's what he says. He says, key to any group's existence on the web is the integrity of the group itself, which entails privacy and confidentiality. Privacy includes the ability of each person to dictate what can and can't be done with their own personal information. There is no excuse for privacy policies not to be consensual. Agreements on privacy are a part of the greatest prerequisite for a web-like society. Trust. So here we are, more than 15 years after FaceMash, well into the age of participation on the web, and we're still grappling with these twin ideas of trust and consent. If you have a smart doorbell on the front of your house made by Ring, an Amazon-owned company, they can share your local video footage with the police department without your consent. Amazon also has a feature called Sidewalk that takes a portion of your private internet connection at home and creates a mesh network of all of the Ring doorbells and all of the Echo smart speakers where Alexa lives within range of each other up to half a mile away. This feature is turned on by default. You have to know about it and manually opt out of participating. Google owns a company called Nest that sells smart thermostats. These thermostats have sensors that detect when you're home or not. Google can and does capture this data along with your energy usage patterns. Google has a patent that claims to be able to analyze household movement via special microphones placed throughout the home and can identify which resident is in which room. Google's Nest brand sells smoke detectors as well. There was a bit of a scandal a year or two ago when it was discovered that they all have undisclosed, unlisted microphones in them. And well, if you own a robot vacuum, it is by design mapping the floor plan of your house and uploading it to the cloud. Many of these vacuums have cameras on them as well. The Roomba's privacy policy states, we reserve the right to anonymize your personal data, including the information about robot and service usage, and to retain your anonymized information for our own records and for product and feature development purposes. So, does all of this mean that you can't trust these companies? That you can't trust the IoT devices that they're selling? That they're all leaking your private data, the floor plan of your home, your energy usage, the times that you're home, who is in any given room at any given time, and everyone who visits your home, including package delivery and takeout food orders? By selling you a smart light bulb, does that company now have the right to know every time you turn it off and turn it on? I guess that's where trust comes in. Do you have a good fiduciary relationship with these companies? Have they taken a Hippocratic oath for your data? Now, imagine if I said, hey, Siri, how are you? And only my phone responded. Imagine if my personal voice assistant living on my personal smartphone actually knew who I am. Imagine if a device that was literally invented to hear the sound of my voice actually recognized my voice. Hey Siri, who is talking to you right now?
I'm not sure I understand.
You see, voice agents like Siri exploit a natural cognitive bias towards trustworthiness. She's a friendly voice that seems to have all the answers. Trip O'Dell, the product design lead for Alexa, said it best. On some level, he says, we assume Alexa is our invisible friend who lives inside the device. But Alexa isn't our friend. It's a web service that's mostly a search engine housed inside an object covered in microphones. Hey Siri, turn on airplane mode.
Okay, I turned airplane mode on.
Hey Siri, how are you? Siri? Hey Siri. And see, just like that, she's gone. No internet, no cloud, no Siri. Tripp goes on to say, we're entirely dependent on the goodwill and trustworthiness of companies that are incentivized to profit from our behavior. When we start creating voice agents that seem human and sound trustworthy, how do I protect myself from being manipulated? Most of Siri's answers to my questions today came straight from Wikipedia. I mean, literally, read word for word the first sentence on each page. What is consent? What is a fiduciary relationship? Who is Hippocrates? And I'm actually okay with that. You see, Wikipedia is a source that I happen to trust. And Siri is just getting back to her roots as a screen reader for blind and low vision users. When Steve Jobs introduced the first Macintosh on stage way back in 1984, he said, I'd like to let Macintosh speak for itself. Open Firefox.
Hello, I'm Macintosh. It sure is great to get out of that bag. Never trust a computer that you can't lift.
The audience went wild. And we can draw a straight line from that moment to the smartphone that you have in your pocket today. Open Photos. Screen readers have been around for decades now, whispering into your ears everything that you can read with your eyes. The only difference is that nowadays screen readers have broken through to wild mainstream success. Everyone who uses a voice assistant is, in essence, using a screen reader as well. You see, accessibility is a springboard for innovation. What you've just experienced here and what you experience every time you use your voice assistant is universal design in action. But did you notice that Siri didn't cite her sources? That's not trust. That's a leap of faith. And what if one day I asked her something like, hey, Siri, is the Earth really flat? Open Chrome. What if she responded with this?
Of course the Earth is flat. Scott, don't you trust your eyes?
Open Photos. You see, speech synthesis isn't the hard part of this problem to solve. It's baked into every modern web browser, every modern operating system, every modern device. The challenge, once again, is trust. Trip O'Dell, again, the product design lead for Alexa, was asked what his ideal voice assistant would be. He said, I think that it would be very useful to have a trustworthy digital assistant who can warn me when I'm about to share more information than I intended. I'd love a version of Alexa that said, those terms of use are really invasive, and they want a lot of information that you don't normally share. Don't sign up for that. See, that's the digital assistant that I want as well. A voice assistant that lives at the intersection of participation and trust. All right, let's do a quick thought experiment, okay? I'm going to put up an architectural diagram, and you decide where you would draw the cloud. All right. Imagine all of the places you go in a given week. Your home, your office or your school, all of the companies you do business with. Where would you draw the cloud? Where would you feel most comfortable keeping the keys to your house, the keys to your car, control of your thermostat, your light bulbs, your vacuum cleaner, your personal photos and videos? Where would you feel most comfortable keeping the keys to your office, the keys to your file cabinets and desk drawers? Where would you feel more comfortable keeping your banking information, your legal documents, your personal medical records? And who would you feel most comfortable sharing all that personal information and control with? I'll tell you what, I'll give you a minute to think about where you would draw your cloud of trust. So, where did you draw your cloud? Who did you decide that you trust most with your personal information, your digital identity, and all of your digital worldly goods? I wish that this diagram accurately represented my digital life today, my digital cloud of trust. Instead, my digital identity and all of my digital worldly belongings are literally scattered to the wind, floating around in someone else's cloud. My identity is so fragmented, so splintered across hundreds of different companies that I have to use a password manager to remind myself of who that company thinks I am. How did we get to the point that every one of the companies I deal with, sometimes multiple times a day, demand proof of who I am, my trustworthiness, instead of the other way around? When confidential passwords and secret handshakes aren't enough, they want to call or text me on my personal cell phone for a second form of identification. Ironically, most times that's the device I'm already on, the device I'm already using to log into their website, and they don't even know it. Then, if that's not enough, they pry for more and more personal information. What was my mother's maiden name? What was the color of my first house? What was my favorite subject in school? How did we get to the point where I have to prove my trustworthiness to every company that I deal with instead of the other way around? And how do we get to the point where there's a Wikipedia page titled List of Data Breaches? Look that one up. List of Data Breaches. That page details how regularly the data breaches happen and how large each one is, often measured in the hundreds of millions for each company. Hundreds of millions of accounts lost, hundreds of millions of personal caches of digital worldly goods exposed to the world. This is not a fiduciary relationship. That is not a relationship based on trust. And Tim Berners-Lee feels that way as well. He has created this thing for each of us as individuals called a pod, a personal online data store. Think of a pod as a web server that is there to serve exactly one person, you. This pod serves up your personal identity in a standards-based, cryptographically strong way invented by the same person who invented the World Wide Web over 30 years ago. This pod, your personal online data store, literally inverts the model of the internet as we know it today. It reintegrates your splintered identity and it reunites all of your digital worldly goods under one roof. Instead of entrusting your personal photos and videos to a stranger who has proven time and time again that they care far less about your privacy and protecting your digital worldly goods than you do. Instead of that, you simply store your personal photos on your personal online data store, your pod. From there, you can share your photos directly with your friends and family, or you can outsource it to a third party like you already do today. The key difference is that you hold the key to your data and you control who can see it and what else they can do with it. As that pendulum swings between openness and privacy, you personally hold the key to consent. All of a sudden, all of my earlier concerns about my vacuum mapping my house, my doorbell keeping track of who comes and goes, my thermostat knowing whether I'm home or not, all of my concerns go away. Each of these devices sharing data and collaborating with each other becomes a really desirable feature, not a security flaw. And what's most interesting is that the only thing that's changed about this entire model is my level of trust, my degree of trust in what data is collected, where it is stored, and who it is shared with. Tim Berners-Lee calls this personal data sovereignty and self-sovereign identity. Now, as I turn on Siri, I'm getting the end of my keynote right now. Looking forward to your questions. Open photos. Hey Siri, what is sovereignty?
Sovereignty is the supreme authority within a territory. Sovereignty entails hierarchy within the state, as well as external autonomy. Shall I continue?
It doesn't sound like you can. No.
I'm not sure I understand.
No, I'm fine. These pods, these personal online data stores that grant us both data and integrity sovereignty are not just a theory. They're being put into practice today around the world. Tim Berners-Lee company Inrupt is partnering with the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK. In this pilot program, you store your personal medical records on your personal pod and grant permission to your doctors and healthcare providers to get access to them. Inrupt has partnered with the government of Flanders in Belgium. Every citizen is given their own secure pod, empowering them to, in Tim's word, once again, be the masters of their own data. You'll be able to inform the government if you've moved by updating your home address in your pod once. Then everyone who has permission to see your home address, the government, your company, your school, your friends and family, the businesses you buy goods, services from, they'll all get the fresh data at once because you've given them permission to see your changes. You control the pendulum of consent. The reverse is true as well, of course. If the government needs to issue you a new driver's license or make a payment to you or update your voter registration information or really any kind of civic interaction at all, they can do it with you personally in a secure and trusted way through your pod. Inrupt is working with NatWest, the National Westminster Bank in the UK. Through your pod, you can register a new business or change your marital status. From there, you can set up new bank accounts or close existing ones, anything that reflects your new life moments right on your pod. So, where does this leave us? In just a year or two, 75% of the world will own a smartphone, and the vast majority of those folks will use their smartphones exclusively to access the web. Our participation on the web, our digital identities, our digital voice assistants, and saving our digital worldly goods to the cloud is only going to increase as well. We are literally writing our digital future today with every line of code that we commit. And without digital trust, we'll have to decide if that's the world we want to live in. Hey Siri, what's the definition of trust?
As a noun, it means firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. Do you want to hear the next one?
No. I like that definition quite a bit. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you truly for the honor of letting me join you here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. I'm like, just when everybody thought it was crazy enough, we had a lifetime of managing all sorts of browsers and all sorts of internet protocols, all those poor engineers out there who've learned that 5 times over in their careers, you're introducing a whole new future for us. So a couple of questions along that front, keeping us all in jobs for the future, wonderful. But Tim Berners-Lee, no better person to reinvent the web for us. I've copied a couple of the questions across to the channel. I'm going to use my executive authority to keep us moving this morning. So apologies, you won't get to do a live voice response to that. But what a wonderful start to the day. Thank you so much, Scott. And if you've got a question for Scott, pop into his Slack channel. I think he might be able to sit in there for a short time, and let's keep moving along as we do with conferences. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.